Okay, welcome to our alumni pathways. We have here Abigail, Namon, Vallely, straight from the UK. So nice and early for her right now. We're super grateful for you joining us. And I'm wondering, Abigail, if you could kind of share with us a bit of your pathway since you've left UNIS.
So I graduated in 2014 and I went to the UK to study fine art. This was actually University of Reading, but after the first year, I decided to drop out and just work in a bar for a year. But then in 2015, I went to Westminster to study business management. I then finished that and decided during that time that I wanted to do logistics and operations management as a master's, which is quite ironic considering the fact that I was not good at maths at all. And with operations, you need that quite a bit, especially when you're doing a master's. After that, after graduating, I ended up working at an ASOS return site in a warehouse where anything that you get from ASOS and you want to return it, it gets sent over there so it can be processed. And anything that's not good gets binned, and anything that's still the quality is not as bad gets repackaged and all that, and then resold. After that, I actually started working in aerospace and defense, which is a bit different to ASOS. So for that, I was moving around helicopter parts and warships and stuff. However, there are some things I actually can't say because it's actually part of the government and military. And now here I am in Birmingham. I'm actually doing a contract with the Commonwealth Games that's going to be happening here in the end of July in Birmingham. And that's basically where I am now. So a bit of a change from fine art to logistics, I guess.
Wow, that is such a great story. I'm wondering, can we unpack that a little bit? Can you tell me like what happened? Like, so you took fine arts and I'm assuming realized it wasn't for you, or like, why did you choose fine arts to begin with?
I believe looking back, the main reason I chose that was because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And I would just remember at UNIS, there was a big push to going to university, which, it's good. But I think for the industry I work in, I've noticed that you don't have to go to university to be successful. But with fine art, for example, I just felt quite pressured, like, oh, I have to do this. I have to go to university. It doesn't really matter what degree it is, as long as you do something. And at that point in my life, I felt like I was not ready, and I just chose something I didn't like. Well, I thought I was going to like it. So yeah, I think it just decided to drop out and just take a year. So if you're not ready, like I just say, like, just take a year out. Like, don't do what everyone wants you to do. Like, follow what you want to do, really.
I think that's such a great message. And I think we often prepare for uni because as students leave here, we need to help them get documents if they need it one day. But
Yeah.
you're right. Like, how do we kind of properly set people up to follow whatever path they're ready for when they're ready? And so you said you took a year off, you worked in a bar. How did you then figure out like what you wanted to do next?
Um, I think it was just kind of like a wake up call for me. I'm not gonna lie. No, I think it was something I needed to do, just so that I could just support myself a little bit, um, and then just figure out what I wanted to do. And just in a way, I was working in a bar that was a family one, so I was just thinking like, oh, maybe business is something I want to do. Also, I did have an existential crisis when I was doing fine art because realistically, I was like, how am I gonna survive in the real world, basically?
Okay, so that didn't seem apparent. Whereas going into business seemed a little more apparent to you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so then you did operation management, logistics and operation management without having been very good at math. How did that then be a successful career for you?
Well, actually, I was more interested in logistics because for me, it's quite interesting to see how something goes from one place to another. and all the planning you have to do for that. But I moved to Cardiff to do that. But what I didn't realize, I didn't really do that much research. I just kind of jumped into it because there's logistics, there's supply chain, there's operations. And at that time, I wasn't sure how they differ. And it just so happened that the course I applied for and got into was logistics and operations management. And then after the first module, I was like, I didn't actually realize there's a lot of maths in this. And I was like, is this a mistake? So I just had to push through. But luckily for me, what I chose afterwards for work, it doesn't actually require as much maths. But, and then I just kind of gave it a shot. And here I am now. So give it a go.
Awesome. And then you've already had like quite an interesting jobs, from ASOS to aerospace and defense to now helping plan Commonwealth Games. Can you tell me a little bit about like what causes you to move from one company to the next?
Oh, right after graduating, I actually just applied to loads of graduate schemes, which I personally would highly recommend, because not as much for ASOS, because basically I was meant to be there for 2 years, but after 5 months, again, I dropped out because when I was in the warehouse, I didn't feel supported. And that's the thing as well, like with the grad scheme, it's quite difficult to get onto. So for the first 3 months, when I didn't enjoy it, my first thought was that, there's so many people applied for it. I worked so hard for this, like I should probably push through. And just feeling not great about myself. And then I eventually dropped out and just ended up applying for another graduate scheme. Um, and it just happened to be the rival kind of like company for logistics and all that. And somehow ended up managing to get that as well. So I think again, it's just giving it a shot really. And if you don't enjoy something, just don't push yourself. There's more opportunities out there anyways. So that's when I applied to Kuehne+Nagel, the company I work for now. And the first placement was actually working in aerospace and defense. So that's how I managed to get that job as well. And it just so happens that the Commonwealth started. We needed to start planning for it. So now I'm the assistant warehouse manager for the Commonwealth Games. And what my role is and what we're doing is that we only have one warehouse and we are just basically receiving everything from all over the world, from all the Commonwealth Games. And it's quite interesting because we're getting everything from sports equipment, but also everything for like the sports village. So we've got, beanbags, got arcade games, we've got pretty much everything you could put into like a hotel or like, accommodation. Got loads of things coming from IKEA, but the issue is trying to figure out how are we going to store all of this. For example, we've got about 4,000 chairs and everyone's looking like they're ready to like cry because we can't figure out how we're going to store this, because it's not just a standard box, it's just on wheels, and it's like if it comes up the racking, like, we don't want anything to get like damaged and all that. So yeah, I think for me, it's just winging it. I'm not gonna lie, to get to where I am now. But it's also I just didn't give up. I applied to many, 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 many jobs and keep getting rejected. But it doesn't hurt to try.
I love that attitude. And also like just understanding that, it doesn't just happen like the first go around, like this is applying to many jobs and eventually you get where you want to go. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit, you talked about graduate schemes. I don't know that that's an expression or an understanding that a grade 10 would have. Can you explain what that is?
So basically, a grad scheme is a scheme companies do where you've recently graduated and you don't have work experience. And it's one of those schemes where you kind of rapidly kind of progress rather than just going through the normal pathway. And with it, you usually do get a lot of training, you get a lot of exposure to the business. Yeah, it's something I would highly recommend. I think most people who've been on the grad scheme would recommend that as well. especially here in the UK. It might be helpful for some people as well because it could help people stay. Well, now there's the rule that if you've studied in the UK, you get a 2-year visa. But with the graduate scheme as well, there are some companies that actually offer a visa for the duration of you doing the grad scheme. And then at the end, not all companies, but most companies, they would offer you a full-time role at the end after you've done all the training, because it's in a way, it's like the company investing into you.
Oh, that sounds fantastic. And something specific to the UK, I haven't heard that in other countries. So that's great that you've had that opportunity. Are you a British citizen? Is that so? Okay. Just you'd mentioned with the visas and whatnot. So I was just checking if that was something you'd had to pursue.
No, I think this is something I know would be applicable to quite a few students, so I thought it was worth mentioning.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. So now if you were thinking back to your grade 10 self, is there what advice do you wish that somebody had given you, or even if you just want to say like what advice you'd give a grade 10 now?
I think the best advice I'd give is, if just research. There's so many different jobs out there. Like, it's not the standard, like, I'm gonna be a doctor, I'm gonna be an accountant. Like, there's so many like interesting jobs out there. So, it's always worth just kind of even going on LinkedIn or something, and just do your research, I guess, because going to university and you don't want to waste your 3 years just doing something you don't want to do. And also, it's just don't give up, I guess.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And my last question just has to do with, do you feel that the IB diploma helped you, or do you feel like it wasn't necessarily necessary for where you are today? How do you, what do you think of that?
It definitely made things very stressful, I have to admit.
Yeah.
But in a way, I think I wasn't personally great at school, but I think it did teach me to kind of like manage the workload, considering how many things that's happening. And if for people listening, university is not going to be as bad. You just do one subject, so just power through it and you'll be okay. But yeah, it definitely taught me to deal with the workload, trying to manage time. Definitely taught me that I definitely do need sleep to be able to function properly. So
Oh, I love that as a final message. Like if
yeah,
all my students,
because I know, like for myself, I barely slept like from 10th grade to 12th grade, just dealing with everything. So please sleep because it's not good for you.
well, that's a great message to end on. I'm really grateful for your time here this morning. And I think the intention was to share this with the grade 10s, but I actually feel like I'm also going to be sharing it with the 11s and 12s because I feel there's so many important messages, like just your pathway, how things can change, apply for lots of jobs, and just don't give up. So
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know what other advice to give, because I was just basically winging it and just applying to everything and not giving up.
I think that's great.